biggest losers in the new AI economy that's emerging, and they are already starting to crash out. You're seeing this manifest in the dating market, you're seeing this in politics. And if you're on LinkedIn, you're seeing this on LinkedIn as well. And I think this is going to have tremendous implications for the world around us and the future that emerges as a result of the disruption that AI is going to cause. So I want to dive into this post that.
What's up, YouTube? Today we're reacting to this woman's channel, which I believe is fairly new, to essentially cover all the facts on why the female unemployment rate keeps going up and up here in the West. So let's get into it, shall we?
See posted on LinkedIn. And it's literally, she says it's a cry for help. And I see posts like this all the time in my LinkedIn feed. Part of this is because of the work I did before I started doing videos on YouTube. I was a freelance SEO writer. So I wrote search engine optimized content, mostly personal finance content. And a lot of writing jobs have just been obliterated in the last year or two. Part of that is because of AI, but part of it is also because AI is changing business models. So Google search has fundamentally changed. And with that, how websites generate revenue has also changed. So you've probably experienced this yourself. Instead of clicking through onto a website to learn about a topic you're interested in, you'll just type your query into Google search or even ChatGPT for that matter. And then you'll stop at the AI overview. You'll read the synopsis that the Google AI overview provides you, and that's it. So because people aren't clicking through to websites as much anymore, all of these websites that once hired writers and editors and content strategists to help them produce content for the websites, they're no longer economically viable. So you've seen a ton of people in that space who have been let go in the past couple of years. Like digital media has just taken a tremendous hit. You know, I'm definitely a victim of this as well. Lost 100% of my income because of this. And so you're seeing a lot of people pleading on platforms like LinkedIn, begging for jobs. And the problem is they don't recognize that the jobs they expect or want to have simply no longer exist, or at least don't exist in the price point that they can afford to continue working them. So this is going to be massively disruptive for everyone in the economy, but I think women are going to be hit particularly hard. And I think there's some very good reasons for this. I mean, one, the biggest thing, women don't work as demanding jobs as men. Just compare someone like this who's a communications and content manager with a guy working on an oil rig, a guy doing construction, any sort of like blue collar, heavy, physical labor job.
This is all true. Yeah. The majority of blue collar workers are essentially, well, they're male dominated. Or be construction work, road work, you name it. And yeah, AI is definitely where the world is going. That's one of the reasons why I'm taking IT courses right now. Well, let's face it, I think the way the world is going, we all need to be a little bit IT certified, at the very least. We all do.
Apples to oranges, right? And so you have women who are accustomed to working easy, I'd say relatively easy, comfortable office jobs. They're used to like the social status and prestige that those office jobs provide them, and those jobs are rapidly disappearing. And I think one of the faults of women, and part of, why feminism is really so destructive is a lot of these women have been complaining that the patriarchy is underpaying them, that they're not being paid their worth, when in reality, the market has been sending these women signals for years that the labor they are providing is not valuable in the economy. I'll give you a couple examples. So if you're not familiar, Morning Brew is a popular newsletter, digital content service. They do business stuff, but they've also expanded in recent years. They do like tech and health and all that kind of stuff. So they have some job postings. And I just wanted to show you kind of what the job landscape is for women right now. So this is for a reporter for CFO Brew, which is one of their newsletter verticals. It's based in New York City, so it's based in a high cost of living area. And if you go down here, compensation, $75,000 to $80,000 a year. So if you live in New York City and you're working this job, Not only is like $75,000 really not a good salary for someone in 2025, but when you're living in a city like New York that is heavily taxed, your take home pay is going to be probably closer to like 50,000, 45, $50,000 a year. So you really don't have a lot to work with. So this job pays 75,000 to 80,000 dollars. It's for a reporter. This one is a social video producer. Again, these are two jobs women typically will apply for. Again, 75,000 to 85,000. And then another one, events manager. Women love working these types of jobs, all in New York. And this one is slightly higher. You'll get 85 to 90,000. But again, all three of these jobs pay less than $100,000 a year, definitely less than what you need to survive in New York City. And these are all jobs that are category types that are typically.
Madam, I completely agree with literally everything you are saying. I completely agree. Like, I'm originally from New England, Connecticut, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen so many men flock over to the northern state of Connecticut to essentially get jobs and building submarines. Because of that, it's become a seller's market for housing in New England. It really has. Or vice versa, I've been seeing a lot of women, well, majoring in majors that just don't really have any real market value. Like I once met a woman who graduated with a performing arts major, realized that she couldn't make money off of that. Her reaction was to go back to college and try to get a degree in law. And I'm like, uh, okay, I'm pretty sure by the time you get that law degree, you are going to be so wrapped up in debt, and you're going to be at the age where you won't be able to enjoy it, financially speaking. Well, yeah.
Women are looking at this as the patriarchy oppressing them, and that's how they've framed this for several years now. But in reality, this is the market signaling that there's an overabundance and oversupply of labor for these positions. And so they don't command as high of a salary as other positions, like, working on an oil rig, for example. And as a result, they don't pay as much. So women are choosing, self selecting for relatively easy and comfortable jobs that simply don't pay as much, and they're not looking at signals in the market to understand that their labor simply isn't in demand. So I think as jobs decrease, especially jobs that women are looking for, and there's an increase in available supply of labor in the market, it's just going to continue pushing wages down. So it's going to be a race to the bottom. Other issues, though, that women are going to face, they're kind of lazy, and I say this as a female. Women just don't work as hard as men. So people are going to have to retrain. They're going to have to become AI literate. They're going to need to learn new skills. Like one of the top in-demand jobs right now with regard to artificial intelligence is a forward deployed engineer. So basically it's someone who can understand and navigate the tech stuff, but also someone who can work with a business enterprise client to help them implement. So it's someone who can help integrate AI into business workflows, which is a high need and high demand need for businesses right now, but who also has technical capacities to like debug and understand what's going on. And so those jobs are paying, not great, I would say, comparatively speaking, but like they're in demand. So there's no shortage.
Yeah, no, ma'am, I can definitely relate to what everything you're saying. Everything. Like, take me. I currently work in sterile processing, the heart of the hospital. Yeah, the pay is technically not what it should be when you consider how important the job is. However, when you look at all the advancements in surgery, like robotic surgery, orthopedic surgeries, yeah, that's just the value of that job is just going to continue to grow and grow, and people are starting to see that. As for the reason why I'm trying to get AI certified on top of that, well, like I said, when you look at robotic surgeries, think about it. when it comes to robotic surgery, the hospitals are making huge investments in. Doesn't take much to put two and two together and figure out that someone who's certified in sterile processing and also certified in IT is an employee that a lot of hospitals will want to essentially invest in. It really is.
But so you need to retrain for those jobs. There's an abundance of online courses you can take. You can do a boot camp. There's all sorts of things you can do to retrain, right? Women aren't going to be the ones signing up for these things. And you can see this with regard to how tech played out over the past decade. Women have a preference for spending their weekends going to brunch or going to Soul Cycle or kind of living a comfortable life. They're not going to be the ones that wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and hustle and grind before their 9 to 5 job. They're not going to be the ones that volunteer for extra work, especially if it's unpaid work. And they're just not going to be the ones putting forth the effort. So in addition to them working jobs that are waning in demand, they're not taking the initiative to reskill. And so that's going to handicap them. And I would say the final thing that's really hurting women right now is they're kind of a liability for a lot of corporate offices right now. Women tend to be more political, especially younger women. Again, you saw this with the election of Zoran Mamdani in New York. Overwhelmingly, it was young liberal women who put him into office. But you've seen this over the years with DEI and critical race theory and all sorts of implementation of these things in the corporate office setting. This is a lot. This makes women a liability. Like if you're a hiring manager right now and you have the pickings in the labor market and you have a choice between someone who's going to work hard, might put in overtime, especially if it's unpaid, and they'll go above and beyond to do the work that needs to be done, or someone who's going to complain that the patriarchy is not paying them enough, that's going to be lazy, that's going to take excessive coffee breaks, and that is going to push for activist political policies within a corporate office setting. Like, I think the choice is pretty simple right now. So
Choice is definitely simple, and I've actually experienced this firsthand myself. Like, for example, in my lab, I'm what's called the heavy. Which I am. I'm literally the only person who pretty much enjoys getting out of lab, moving all over the hospital. When oh, by the way, I work at sterile processing. I remind you guys. And when I take time off, I'll be honest with you, my entire team says they really do feel it physically. They really do. Or vice versa. Well, I once had a former female friend who literally, she was very gifted, very smart, and she literally got a full-time scholarship as an engineering major at Florida University. But apparently, that alone was not enough to convince her to move out of her parents' house and live in a dorm. And when I found that out, I'm pretty sure, like, okay, okay, I'm pretty certain that employers are going to do a background check, they're going to see that, and they're going to take that as a red flag. Because, yeah, a lot of employers like to say we promote growth here, but the whole point of that is that employers like to invest in employees who are willing to work hard. That's the whole point of that whole thing.
handicapped in themselves. Not all women, of course. And I'm not saying this particular lady that I want to cover today. I don't know her, so I don't know what her background is. But I'm just saying, generally speaking, most women in white collar corporate settings, they have done themselves a great disservice. And so I think they're going to be the biggest losers of the AI revolution. So what does this look like? We can talk about like what is going to cause this, but what is the downstream end effect of this? So you're going to have women who are going to be out of work. That's going to be a big one. Some of these women, I think, are going to start relying more heavily on social welfare programs and the safety net because they think something is owed to them. They have an entitled mentality and they just don't have the work ethic. So they haven't put the reps in to do the work. So they don't, frankly, know how to work. So there's going to be that aspect of it. But the other aspect I want to talk about is loss of social status. And this is something that really isn't being talked about, but it's going to have a psychological impact on our culture and society writ large that I don't think we are prepared for. So this is an example of someone who has lost or is in the process of losing social status. So that's socioeconomic status, someone who maybe once could afford living in a high cost of living city like New York and Los Angeles and Miami and those kinds of places, to someone who can no longer afford to do those things, someone who can no longer afford to do that activities they once did. And as a result, they're losing standing in society. They're losing friendships. They're not able to engage in the same activities they once were able to. And so you're going to see women who are going to fall from the white collar middle class into poverty. And yes, you're going to have these women cleave onto social safety programs. But at the same time, there's going to be so many people cleaving onto these programs that there's not going to be enough support for everyone. So they're still going to struggle. And because these women have largely adopted a feminist mindset, they've alienated themselves from their families and from men. So they don't have a network of support. They're probably living.
Well, technically, madam, we don't really have to wait anymore because we're already starting to see that. Like, I'll be honest with you, we've been seeing so many women, like, freaking out in droves about how men are not willing to date locally in the West anymore. They're wanting to date women from overseas now. And we're seeing that affect them because, like, hey, they're not being treated like the prize that they thought they were. And we're also seeing an insanely huge rise in women applying to work on things like OnlyFans, which is just online sex work. Because, hey, you got paid the bill somehow. Technically, man's not going to come to help you out anymore because you kind of already burnt that bridge. You really did.
From family networks who could otherwise come in and support them, and they haven't invested in relationships, so they're likely single and unmarried, and they're probably not going to have a prospect for marriage in the future. So this is going to leave large swaths of women completely destitute. And I think the financial side is going to be pretty bad, but I think the social side that comes from, and the psychological side that comes from loss of social status is going to be tremendous. So this woman starts, she says, "This is a cry for help. I just got my health insurance renewal in the mail. I do not qualify for any subsidies because I make too much in my low cost of living state to qualify for any help." And this is, the health insurance stuff is a big problem. She says her monthly premium is going up by 35%. For one person in a single income household, my monthly premiums for a worse plan than I have now will be nearly $800. So again, the cost of living shouldered by single women is only going to continue to rise, right? Because the cost of living is going up for the rest of us too. But when you don't have another person to split costs with, you're going to have to bear 100% of it. So she's got a $800 premium she's going to have to deal with. And she says, oh, and my student loans are $950. You read that right. $950, which is reduced from on a temporary payment plan. So it's down from $1,400. So why are her loans? That's pretty expensive. My student loans, just for context, don't have a master's degree, just did undergrad, and I'm paying like $350 a month for student loans. So costly, yes, but nowhere near this. And so right off the bat, you can see, well, she went to NYU. So that's her problem. You have women who have made poor investment choices in terms of their education. They've decided to go to fancy schools in high cost of living cities that don't provide a return on investment, and they're not getting good degrees. Okay, so her, let me see if I can find her education. Where is it? I don't know if it has. I know she was an actor. I saw, okay, education, right? So Bachelor of Fine Arts, Drama. So she went to the Tisch School of Arts and she got a drama degree, which I can only imagine what that costs. Not good ROI. It looks like she spent some time in LA, so tried to become an actress, and that didn't pan out. And, that happens. That's kind of, par for the course. There's a lot of reasons why, people don't succeed in things they try to do. But anyways, She invested in a degree that's completely worthless. She now has to pay for the consequences of her choices, and that is eating a substantial amount of money from her income every month. So it puts a lot of stress on her. And she says she's been trying and failing to get a job for the last 2 years. So this is why this is a perfect example. So you have someone who's not reading the room. Like the reason why it's hard to find a job and she's not succeeding is because she and all the other communications and content managers out there are also looking for jobs too, because we are going through a massive disruption right now as a result of AI. And again, it's not just that AI is taking everyone's jobs, it's disrupting business models and it's disrupting revenue streams such that employing these people is no longer economically viable, or because there is such a large supply of these people in the market, there's just so much competition that they just can't compete. Especially now that the competition has opened up globally. So these people aren't just competing with American workers, they're competing with workers in India and the Philippines now too, who can work.
And they're not just competing with workers either. They're also competing with other women from overseas too for potential husbands who they can share the financial burden with. And that's literally what passport bros are and why they're so angry at them. Because let's face it, since the dawn of mankind, a woman has never essentially competed with a man for the man's hand in marriage. That makes no sense. In reality, you've been competing with your fellow women, and to the victor goes the spoils. And now, because of all this online stuff, guess what? That competition has now expanded to women all over the globe. It really has. Personally, I'm kind of happy about that.
So yeah, this is why it's pretty problematic. So she's gone through the numbers. She has nowhere else she can trim on her budget. So she left her life and friends and moved to a high cost of living area, to a low cost of living area. So from high to low. It was a necessary sacrifice, she says, meant to be temporary, but things only got worse with inflation. So I can relate. Like, yeah, I've made that choice too, moving from Washington, D.C. And I've moved around quite a bit in the past couple of years, but Austin, Texas, where I'm at now, definitely far cheaper than Washington D.C. She says she's cut subscriptions, reduced her food intake to save on groceries. She cooks every single meal. She does not eat out or order delivery. I suspect that while she was in LA and New York, this was probably a habit of hers, right? So she probably got takeout all the time. She doesn't even buy pre-cut fruits and vegetables anymore because there's an upcharge she can't afford. I don't even know why people buy pre-cut fruits and vegetables. Like, I guess if like you're busy, maybe. Kind of seems like laziness to me, but that's just me. So she barely has a social life, never goes out in order to save money. The last vacation she had was 4 years ago. So here she is. She's lamenting on the luxury things she used to indulge in, things like takeout, pre-cut fruits, vacations, and her social life. And I hate to break it to her, but a lot of working class people, especially people who have been suffering in the heartland of this country, who lost jobs as a result of deindustrialization over the past few decades. Like this is the new normal for them. I think there were a lot of people who worked in manufacturing plants in places like Indiana and Ohio and in Michigan, and they were making good money, had the rug pulled out from underneath them, and this has been their new normal for a decade or two now, especially since the 2008 financial crisis. So this is going to become the new normal for these women. They are going to have to accept that you can't just take vacations whenever you want. You have to learn to cook if you don't know already. Buying pre-cut vegetables is a waste of money. And yeah, you're not going to have a social life because having a social life in America costs money. We don't really have public spaces. We have third spaces, and those third spaces have an entrance fee. So, you have to buy a drink if you're at a bar, go to a coffee shop, whatever. And you can buy the cheapest thing possible. Sure, you can buy, black coffee. That's what I do whenever I go out to a coffee shop. But still, I mean, stuff like that adds up over time. She says, my income has not increased in 6 years.
And the biggest thing you're going to have to face reality on is that just because you're born a woman does not mean the world owes you anything. And that's the biggest psychological factor out of this entire discussion. Which is, yeah, like, because of the feminist movements, I completely agree with this woman. Well, you develop this kind of biased narrative about men, which unfortunately goes hand in hand with the entire world. It really does. But then you get slapped with, but in reality, shatters that mental image you have of the world to the equivalent of taking like a sledgehammer to a glass window out of plexiglass. And let's face it, anybody who works in the psychiatry field can tell you straight up that could trigger alarming behavioral based issues where you come to realize that everything you were that well actually you get what I mean. It really can. It could trigger an alarming amount of behavioral patterns when your mental image of the entire world gets completely shattered all in one go by essentially reality. That's literally what's going to happen. Anyways, that's all I got time for today. If you like this content, by all means, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment,